I'm Audrey. For 5 grueling years, I buried myself in market analysis, leveraged every smart opportunity, and skipped every unnecessary expense. Not for a car, but for something timeless, something that represented that grind. A Rolex GMT Master 2, the Pepsi model. The day I got it, the weight on my wrist felt like solid proof of my independence. I could picture the look on their faces, the shock, and perhaps a hint of respect, when I showed up at the next family gathering in Connecticut. But that dream, that symbol shattered on a polished marble floor. It happened at Sunday brunch. My sister, the one who thinks the world owes her everything, saw the watch. She didn't ask. She just grabbed my wrist, screaming, "Wearing a fake one, huh?" Before I could react, she slammed the bezel crystal and band first against the table. I heard the sickening crunch of glass and metal twisting. She laughed a sharp, ugly sound, then stepped back. Smirking, "Mom and Dad will cover it. It's just a cheap knockoff anyway." My blood went cold. She didn't just break a watch. She attacked my pride. 5 years of sacrifice reduced to a pile of expensive trash. Was she right? Would family loyalty bury the truth this time? Would they excuse intentional malicious damage they always had before? But this time, I wasn't backing down. What was at stake wasn't just a $100,000 watch. It was accountability. It was proving that what I earned would be respected. The fight is only beginning. When a line is crossed this brazenly, do you stay silent or do you demand justice? Stick around, because the road ahead involves legal papers, ruined reputations, and a debt no one in my family saw coming. Drop your comment below and hit like plus share to spread this message. Thinking back, that Sunday brunch was just the culmination of years of deep-seated resentment. My sister Chloe always felt she was owed my success, and the sight of that Rolex finally pushed her over the edge. She was 30, supposedly an independent interior designer, yet she spent more time scrolling through luxury Instagram feeds than actually securing clients. Her fiancé Jasper was no better. He carried himself like a Silicon Valley visionary, often bragging about the exclusive circles he moved in, but in reality, he was leeching off his family's name and continually failing to launch a profitable business. They lived in an expensive brownstone in Brooklyn that was clearly beyond their means, constantly requiring financial bailouts from our parents, Carol and Arthur, to bridge the gap. They never had to fight for anything substantial. My journey couldn't have been more different. My success wasn't handed to me, it was brutally earned. I hadn't just worked a standard salary job. I was an asset management analyst, and I had just closed a massive merger deal last quarter, securing a bonus that felt absolutely life-changing. My father Arthur once told me I was too focused on work, but I saw it as creating an impenetrable fortress of independence. I spent $100,000 on that Rolex not as a frivolous display, but as a tangible, irrefutable commitment to the work it represented. When Chloe smashed it and called it a cheap knockoff, it was clear she was attacking the years of sacrifice, the late nights, and the inherent difference between my drive and her profound entitlement. This envy wasn't new. 2 years ago, Chloe had decided she needed my vintage Hasselblad camera for a very important aesthetic design shoot. When I firmly refused, she accidentally knocked it off a shelf, shattering the rare lens. My mother, Carol, had instantly covered the $4,000 repair, telling me with a sigh, "She just gets emotional, Audrey. Don't make a scene. Family takes care of family." They always protected her, always smoothed over her destructive behavior, but a destroyed lens wasn't the same as a six-figure watch. The stakes were too high now, both financially and professionally. I also knew that Chloe and Jasper were under immense financial strain. Their wedding planning was over budget, and Jasper had just blown a huge chunk of seed money on a failed crypto venture he refused to admit was a mistake. They desperately needed an infusion of cash, and their entitlement made them believe they were owed the money I had earned. Chloe smashing the watch was not just an act of petty jealousy. It was a desperate, malicious attempt to diminish my status, perhaps, thinking if she could prove my success was fake, it would somehow validate her own failures. I walked through my apartment, the silence heavy, and found the shattered remnants of the Rolex sitting on my kitchen counter where I'd left them. The broken crystal glinted under the light, a physical reminder of her smug, victorious smirk. I picked up my phone, my fingers steady. I wasn't calling a repair shop. I was calling my closest friend and legal sounding board, Nina, because this time the family wouldn't be taking care of family. This time, Chloe would face a consequence that mom and dad couldn't simply swipe away with a credit card. That night, the weight of the ruined watch was replaced by the weight of the family's inevitable intervention. Monday morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls from my mother, Carol, all marked urgent. I ignored them until an hour before my scheduled meeting, finally responding with a curt text, "I'm busy, don't call again." That set the stage perfectly. I knew the classic family routine: pressure deflection and a hastily written check to make the problem vanish. At 6 p.m., my father, Arthur, called, his voice worn out. "Audrey, your mother insists we need to talk. We're arranging dinner tonight, just the family. Please just come and hear us out." He sounded less like a demanding parent and more like a weary negotiator, a role he'd played countless times when Chloe was involved. I agreed, but only to face the inevitable confrontation and set my boundaries. The moment I walked into the dining room, the atmosphere was suffocatingly heavy. Chloe and Jasper were sitting close together, radiating manufactured contrition. My mother, Carol, skipped the greeting entirely and launched straight into the defense. "Chloe has already apologized, Audrey. She was hysterical and thought it was a fake. It was a mistake, a childish tantrum, nothing more." I held up my hand, stopping her before she could offer a solution. "I haven't heard an apology from Chloe, and it wasn't a mistake. It was intentional damage to private property. We both know the difference." Chloe immediately burst into crocodile tears, turning to Jasper, who gave me a look of pure disdain. Jasper spoke up, trying to sound reasonable. "Look, Audrey, we get it. It was expensive. It's a total mess. But your mother and I have already talked. We'll cut you a check for $100,000 right now. That covers the watch. No fuss, no drama. We can put this behind us." "You think this is about the money?" I asked, my voice dangerously level. "It's not about the dollar amount of the watch. It's about accountability, Jasper. It's about Chloe's decade-long pattern of disrespecting every single boundary I set. And you're complicit." Carol slammed her hand on the table, the clatter startling everyone. "That is enough. You are being cold, Audrey. We are family. Take the money, be the bigger person, and move on. You'll buy another watch, a better one. You are financially stable. Your sister is struggling. She just needs your compassion. This is trash compared to your portfolio." "Struggling," I countered, staring directly at Chloe, whose face had gone pale. "Chloe isn't struggling. She's entitled. She thought she could destroy my property, call my years of work a lie, and then have mom and dad clean up the collateral damage with a check." I placed the shattered Rolex parts on the mahogany table, forcing them to look at the wreckage. "I refuse the money. I don't want your cash to cover up your daughter's criminal behavior. I want Chloe to take full personal and financial responsibility for her actions. She needs to understand what real consequence feels like, not just another family bailout." I stood up, pushing my chair back. "I will be pursuing this matter to the full extent of the law. Chloe, I suggest you retain counsel." I called Nina immediately after leaving my parents' house, feeling the sharp, cold clarity of my decision cut through the residual anger. Nina wasn't just my best friend. She was a corporate litigation paralegal, and she understood the importance of protecting assets. "Audrey, I'm proud of you for standing your ground," she said, her voice reassuringly calm. "But if you're going after intentional tort, you need to treat this like a business case, not a family drama. We need documentation." Nina connected me with Mr. Hayes, a legal consultant specializing in high-value property damage, and a contact she trusted implicitly. The next day, I met Mr. Hayes in his Midtown Manhattan office, carrying the heavy velvet box containing the mangled Rolex. I laid out the pieces: the shattered crystal, the bent steel casing, the snapped Jubilee bracelet. It looked like the brutal result of a hammer, not an accident. Mr. Hayes examined the watch with a jeweler's loop, nodding slowly. "This is beyond repair, Audrey. It's total loss. We need to establish two things: the certified replacement value and the intentional malice factor, which significantly increases the punitive damages we can seek." He explained that while the purchase price was $100,000, the replacement value, factoring in market scarcity and appreciation for a sought-after model like the Pepsi GMT Master 2, was much higher. He directed me to a certified horologist for an official appraisal. The appraisal report landed on my desk 48 hours later, listing the official replacement value at $110,000. But Mr. Hayes pointed out that due to the deliberate, malicious nature of the act we could pursue, treble damages, triple the base amount under the right legal argument for property damage in Connecticut where the act occurred. We decided to be conservative, initially aiming for the actual replacement value, plus the costs of emotional distress and legal fees totaling $120,000, significantly more than what my parents had offered. The paperwork quickly mounted. We initiated the claim through my private jewelry insurance policy, meticulously documenting Chloe's explicit statement, "wearing a fake one, huh?" which served as crucial evidence of her malicious intent to publicly humiliate me and destroy what she believed was worthless. This preempted any defense Chloe might attempt about an accidental drop. Mr. Hayes filed an official notice of intent to file suit for intentional destruction of private property. Not a lawsuit yet, but a formal warning that started the clock. That evening, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't call ahead. I just wanted to place the documents directly into Chloe's hands. I found her in the living room, giggling with Jasper, seemingly unconcerned about the consequences. I walked straight up to her, holding a thick manila envelope sealed with Mr. Hayes' firm's logo. "Chloe, this is a formal legal notification. It details the required compensation for the Rolex you intentionally destroyed." She took the envelope, her eyes widening in confusion, then glanced at Jasper, who was already frowning. "Audrey, seriously. Just take the money Mom offered." I met her gaze, utterly devoid of warmth. "Read the letter, Chloe. The price has gone up." I turned around and left the silence behind me, echoing the shock of the new cold reality I had just imposed upon her entitled world. The silence I left behind after handing the envelope to Chloe was a satisfying prelude to the storm that erupted 2 hours later. My phone began vibrating incessantly, but this time it wasn't just my mother, Carol. Jasper was texting me, a stream of abusive, entitled messages, followed by several frantic voicemails from my father, Arthur. I kept my phone on silent, enjoying the peace while preparing for my investment presentation the next morning. The next family gathering, a hastily arranged meeting the following evening, was not dinner, but an ambush. I walked into a tense scene. Chloe was slumped on the sofa, tears staining her silk top. Jasper was pacing aggressively, and my parents for once looked genuinely terrified, not just annoyed. "This is insane, Audrey," Jasper shouted, throwing his hands up the moment I stepped across the threshold. $120,000 for a watch. Are you trying to destroy us?" I looked at Chloe, who avoided my gaze. "No, Jasper. I'm trying to hold your future wife accountable for a crime she knowingly committed. The compensation covers the replacement value, the legal costs of addressing her intentional tort, and the costs associated with the emotional distress of being publicly humiliated by her accusation that my hard-earned property was fake." My mother, Carol, stepped forward, her usual authoritative tone cracking. "Your father and I spoke to our financial advisor. That amount of cash isn't just lying around, Audrey. We offered you the purchase price. Why are you escalating this? We can't just write a check for $120,000 without selling some assets." "That's exactly my point, Mom," I said calmly. You shouldn't have to cover it. Chloe should. This is her debt. And you know she can't afford it. Did she mention the part where I included evidence of the malicious intent, including a transcript of her exact words when she smashed it? Chloe finally looked up, her face twisted with fury and fear. You recorded me. You deceitful snake. No, Chloe. I corrected, I quoted you. And since you attacked my property in front of witnesses, our entire extended family at brunch, your own words are the most damning evidence. Intentional destruction of property is taken very seriously, particularly when the victim is a financially established party in a high-value dispute. Jasper cut in, desperation creeping into his voice. We have the wedding, Audrey. We have the down payment for the brownstone remodel. This will financially cripple us. We'd have to liquidate all of Chloe's minor assets and I'd have to pull out of the new venture. This is vindictive. You should have thought about the remodel before committing malicious destruction, I replied, feeling no remorse. The deadline to accept this settlement is 1 week. If not, Mr. Hayes will officially file the lawsuit and the full damages, including the treble punitive amount, will be closer to $300,000. That number hung in the air, a shocking, impossible burden for them. Chloe let out a small, defeated whimper. They realized this wasn't another negotiation. This was an eviction notice from the safe, entitled bubble they had always inhabited. Chloe's desperate attempt to evade responsibility morphed predictably into a toxic social media campaign. 3 days after the deadline warning, instead of contacting Mr. Hayes' office with a payment plan, she and Jasper launched a full-scale digital smear against me. It started with cryptic, dramatic posts on Instagram, vague enough to avoid direct libel, but obvious to anyone who knew our family. She posted photos of the remnants of the Rolex, labeling it as evidence of a mentally unstable family member's attempt to extort money over a fake watch. Jasper, leveraging his entrepreneurial network, took it a step further on LinkedIn and a few private business forums. He painted me as a greedy, unhinged asset manager, attempting to financially ruin her sister out of sheer jealousy, implying I fabricated the intentional damage claim. Their friends and online followers ate it up, flooding my public profiles with cruel, misguided comments calling me the Rolex scammer and a pitiful, money-obsessed analyst. The emotional toll was negligible. I was too focused to care about strangers' opinions. The professional toll, however, was about to become very real for them, not for me. My friend Nina called her tone urgent. Audrey, I just heard a major rumor. Jasper's big angel investor for his latest tech venture. They saw his public meltdown and the family drama he's broadcasting. They're pulling out. Nina explained that this particular investment group, a very old-school, privacy-focused Wall Street firm, required absolute stability and discretion from their partners. A key requirement in Jasper's contract, she noted, was a clean personal conduct clause that prevented partners from engaging in public financial or legal disputes that could compromise the firm's image. Jasper's posts, combined with the underlying legal threat of an impending lawsuit over intentional destruction of property, were the ultimate red flag. The investment was not small. It was a $15 million deal that would have finally launched Jasper into genuine solvency and secured Chloe's lavish lifestyle. When the official termination notice landed in Jasper's inbox, the resulting screaming match between him and Chloe was so loud, my father Arthur called me shaking. Audrey, what did you do? Jasper just lost everything. This wasn't supposed to ruin his business. I didn't do anything, Dad. I replied, my voice steady. Jasper and Chloe chose to make a legal dispute public and violate a professional contract's moral turpitude clause. That was their choice, their consequence, not mine. I knew this hit them harder than any check could. The loss of face and the spectacular collapse of Jasper's perceived ambition would be devastating in their social circle. The compensation invoice was still outstanding, but the real price of Chloe's malice had just been paid in the form of a lost future. I told my parents I would not be speaking to them further until the $120,000 was officially wired to Mr. Hayes's escrow account. I hung up the phone, feeling the final cold rush of air around the walls I was building. The financial pressure created by the $15 million investment fallout, not the morality of the situation, finally brought my family to its knees. 2 days before the legal deadline, Mr. Hayes called me. "Audrey, we have a wire transfer pending. It's for the full amount, $120,000. He added, "It came directly from a trust fund in Chloe's name, co-signed by your father, Arthur. They liquidated some assets to cover it." I felt a quiet sense of vindication, not triumph. It wasn't the money, but the fact that the cost had finally been borne by those responsible, breaking the decades-long cycle of entitlement. The payment was accompanied by a terse, cold email from my mother, Carol. It contained no apology, only a statement. "We have met your demand. Do not contact us again regarding this matter. We are deeply disappointed in your ruthless lack of family loyalty." I replied with a single professional sentence: "The matter is legally concluded. Best regards." A week later, I received a final desperate plea from Chloe via an unsecured email. She accused me of destroying her relationship with Jasper, claiming the stress of the loss of the $15 million deal had caused him to abandon her and call off the wedding. He blamed me for making our business public. He said I was reckless. "And it was all because of your greed, Audrey. I hate you." I deleted the email without responding. Their life had imploded, but it was due to their reckless entitlement and lack of accountability, not my greed. The shattered Rolex merely acted as the catalyst, exposing the weakness in their foundation. With the insurance payout and the settlement money, I was financially whole again. I immediately called my horologist and asked him to source a new Rolex GMT Master 2, the Pepsi model, with the exact specifications as the one Chloe destroyed. I didn't want a better watch. I wanted the symbol of my independent success back unmarred. The new watch arrived 3 weeks later. It was magnificent. The blue and red bezel was vibrant, the steel bracelet cool and heavy on my wrist. I felt the same pride I had felt when I bought the first one, but this time it was laced with the knowledge of having fought for that pride. I put the watch on and immediately took a photograph of it on my wrist, perfectly focused, sparkling under the light. I uploaded it to Instagram, deliberately tagging the location as Midtown Manhattan Asset Management Office. I didn't tag Chloe or Jasper, but I knew they would see it. The caption was simple: "A final public closure to their smear campaign restored. Account balance, 0. Pride whole." That was the last message I ever sent to my family's social sphere. I didn't cut them off entirely. Arthur and Carol still sent me occasional strained texts, but the dynamic had permanently shifted. I had successfully purchased my freedom from their toxic entitlement with Chloe's own money, and that was the true value of the watch. I was no longer Audrey, the sister they could bully and bail out. I was Audrey, the woman who held them accountable.